Hi there, this is Papa Charlie 7 Mike Mike, and in this video I will talk about the fox hunting tool that I developed. This map-based tool offers location-based and orientation-based cross-bearing or triangulation lines plotting features for radio direction finding activities, also called fox hunting. The tool is web and cloud-based and can be used on Android and iOS devices, but also on Windows and Linux desktop computers, although GPS positioning is not yet supported on desktop computers with an external USB GPS device. I developed the tool for fox hunting by car, but the tool can also be used for fox hunting by walking or cycling, although some specific parameters might need to be changed then. The front end of the tool is developed in JavaScript, and it communicates with a PHP backend, which communicates with a MySQL database. The database stores coordinate-based information about tracks, lines and markers, so that this information can be shared among team members if fox hunting in a team. Because the information is stored, a past fox hunting activity can also be replayed afterwards in a time-lapse. I assume you are familiar with the essence of radio direction finding, with fox hunting, and with cross-bearing or triangulation lines. If you are not familiar with all of that, I recommend watching another video that I made, in which a real fox hunting event is being showed. A link to that video is added in the description text of this video. The best way to show the fox hunting tool is while it's being used in the car. So I will play some videos that I recorded earlier when I was in the car. Those videos start with explaining the basic features. After that, some of the advanced features will be explained, as well as the collaboration features. The video ends with explaining the information that is visible on the Debug Console and on the Debug Information Pane. After the videos from the car are finished, I will explain the remaining advanced features, amongst others adjusting export parameters, exporting data to GPX, JPEG and SQL format. I will also replay some real past fox hunting activities in a time-lapse. After replaying, I show which information is stored in the database, and I finish the video with briefly discussing the quick reference guide. Before we proceed, I would like to thank Dennis, Jeroen, Niels, Richard, Papa Delta 3 Romeo Fox Romeo, Chris, Papa Delta 0 Charlie Lima, Dirk, Papa Alpha 2 Delta Romeo Mike, and Leendert, Papa Delta 5 Lima Delta Bravo, for their inspiration and testing efforts on early versions of this tool. Furthermore, I would like to thank the Vereniging voor Experimenteel Radioonderzoek, VERON, Chapter 08, and especially the Secretary, Richard, Papa Delta 3 Romeo Fox Romeo, for hosting this tool and this video. The About this tool button of the tool contains links to their websites. So let's start the video.
Hi there, I'm in the car right now. I use a Google Pixel 6a smartphone, which is mounted to the front window of my car. So what you see on the screen is what I see through the front window. As you can see, we are on a parking spot, so that we can drive around and play with the fox hunting tool, hopefully without disturbing too many people. I start the tool by pressing on the icon on the desktop. First, the tool asks for your call sign or nickname. You have to enter one to identify yourself to the tool. If you collaborate in a team of fox hunters, team members will recognize you via this call sign or nickname. I enter Michael and I press OK to proceed. Then the tool asks for a secret team or individual code. This code should be dealt with carefully, because those who have this code have access to all the information that you, and if you operate in a team, also your team members generate. I will tell more about collaboration later on, and for now I use code SUMMER and I press OK. We now see a map with in the middle the red arrow, which indicates our current position and orientation. We see some buttons on the top of the screen, we see some buttons on the bottom of the screen, and if I press the Options menu button on the left bottom of the screen, even more buttons appear. I will close this option menu for now, and I will guide you through most of the buttons and their functions in this video. First of all, you might have noticed that the orientation of the map does not match the orientation as we see it through the camera view. And that is because the orientation sensor is not yet turned on. Unfortunately, the orientation sensor cannot be enabled automatically when starting the tool, because some devices require a real user-based event, such as clicking a button, for getting the orientation sensor enabled. As a result, the orientation sensor always has to be enabled manually. For the orientation sensor and also the GPS sensor to work properly, you have to allow access to those sensors via the security and privacy settings of your device. Depending on your device, additional pop-ups asking for permission could come up. If you want to make use of all the fox hunting tool features, you should allow the tool to use those sensors, and you implicitly agree with the tool using, and depending on the applied settings also storing, your location-based data as long as the tool is not closed. When I turn on the orientation sensor by clicking on the orientation sensor button on the right bottom of the screen, the map will rotate because the sensor activates. And as you see, the orientation of the map does still not correspond to the orientation as seen through the camera view. And that is because the Google Pixel 6a has a so-called relative orientation sensor, which is not aware of the magnetic north of our planet. On the other hand, absolute orientation sensors exist, which are aware of the magnetic north of our planet. Most Apple devices are equipped with such an absolute orientation sensor. This device is equipped with a relative orientation sensor, and as a result, it is aware of our relative device orientation from the moment it is turned on. So we somehow need to calibrate the orientation sensor. That can be done manually in the tool, but it can also be done automatically by the GPS assisted orientation feature of the tool, which is turned on by default. This GPS assisted orientation feature uses certain types of physical movements as recognized by the GPS sensor to automatically and continuously recalibrate the orientation sensor. I will drive some meters in a straight line to show you how that works. As you can see, the map orientation sensor is properly calibrated now. The map now corresponds to the view as we see it through the camera. I will drive a little further around some corners to show you some more things. As you have seen, the map rotates when we make a corner, and that is because the true course to north mode is enabled at this moment. This means that our direction is always at the top of the map, even when we try to rotate the map with our thumb and finger. I will show you that if I try to rotate the map, that it rotates back automatically. By pressing the True Course to North button, we switch to the Magnetic Course to North mode. In this mode, the rotation of the map is reset to 0 degrees, and the red arrow will rotate if we change direction. so that it will continuously point to the direction that we are facing. I will drive around some more corners to show you the difference. So I switch to magnetic course to north mode and we see what happens. And you can easily switch between those two modes as you wish. Sometimes you will prefer the magnetic north to the planet to be on the top of the screen, and sometimes you will prefer the direction that you are driving at to be at the top of the screen. I will use the true course to north mode for now. You might have noticed that when we started driving with a certain speed, the map started zooming out automatically. And that is because the auto zoom function is turned on. This function zooms out automatically more and more the faster you drive. And it will zoom in as you drive slower or even stand still. I will tell you later on how the parameters of the auto zoom function can be adjusted. When the auto zoom function is turned on, zooming in and out manually by pitching the screen with your thumb and finger is not possible, so if you prefer zooming manually, this function needs to be turned off. When turned off, you can zoom in and out as you like, and the zoom level will remain as it is, even when you speed up or slow down. So if I zoom in, it's not working. But if I turn off the auto zoom function, I can zoom in, and I can also zoom out. And it will remain as it is. You might also have noticed that the red arrow remains in the center of the screen all the time. That is because the auto center function is turned on. When turned on, it's not possible to swipe the map in any direction. The red arrow will always be recentered in the middle of the screen automatically. If you would like to move the map to another spot, you need to turn off the auto center function. When turned off, you can move the map to any direction. So if I swipe now, it swipes back. And if I turn off the auto center function, I can swipe in any direction. I can even swipe the red arrow outside of the screen. When both auto center and auto zoom function are turned off, you can zoom to any extent you prefer. But you will see that the map looks a little bit strange because it is rotated in the direction we are facing. When the magnetic course to north mode is chosen, the map will look familiar again, as we know it from our school books and from the weather forecasts. When you turn on the auto center again, the red arrow will be in the middle of the screen again. And when you turn on the auto zoom function again, the zoom level is adjusted automatically again. And like already explained, only in magnetic course to north mode you can rotate the map manually with your thumb and finger. I will show you how the map can be rotated manually, and afterwards I will switch back to the true course to north mode. So I rotate with my thumb and finger, and I press, or I go back to the true course to north mode again. Until now, track position function was turned off. When we turn on this function, our positions and as a result our movements will be tracked and saved in the database, and our past positions will be displayed on the map as a red track. If you collaborate, tracks of team members will be displayed in a cyan color, if they have their track position function enabled. So if we collaborate, our team members can see us moving in real time on their maps, if track positions is turned on. And when turned on, after the fox hunting activities are finished, we can nicely replay our track as a time-lapse. When this function is turned off, all of this is not possible because our positions are not saved in the database. I will turn on the track positions function now, and I will show you what happens when we start driving with this function turned on. As you can see, as the function is turned on, a white dot is displayed at the map, which marks the start of the track. And from that moment on, we create a red track behind us. When we turn off the function again, the length of the track is displayed and we will leave the red track behind us. So we get a message, it says that we drove a little distance until now. I press OK. Let me start driving a little further. And you see, we leave the trail behind us. We now discussed all the buttons on the bottom of the screen, and I hope things are clear so far. Let's proceed with the button on the top of the screen, which do not relate to controlling the tool as the buttons at the bottom of the screen do, but which relate to fox hunting itself. Having said that, at the left button at the top of the screen, Add Line Ahead can be used to draw a line straight ahead in the direction we are facing at this moment. So exactly in the direction the red arrow is pointing at. You would use this button only if your car exactly points in the direction where the signal is coming from. Otherwise, it would not make sense to use this button. When you use this button, it is very important to do a quick check if the orientation of the map corresponds to your actual orientation. Depending on the device you are using, it could happen that the orientation sensor deviates from the real orientation. And in such situation, the line ahead would not really point to the direction where the signal is coming from. Driving some meters in a straight line with a certain speed will activate the GPS-assisted orientation feature, and it will automatically correct the deviation in such a situation. So I press Line Ahead now, and we see a blue line. Another way to draw a line is by a single click at a spot on the map where the line should be pointing to, seen from the perspective of the starting point of the line, which is the red arrow in the middle of the screen. I will show you how that works. So I click above the orientation sensor button on the map. A black line is made, and the question is asked, do you want to add this black line? And I say yes. And then the line becomes blue and it's permanent. If I click again above the options menu button on the map, black line is coming. Do you want to add a black line? And I say no. And then the black line is deleted. Lines that you add will be stored in the database. As a result, you can not only see your track afterwards, but afterwards you can also see the lines you made. And if you collaborate with team members by using the same secret code, the team members will see the lines that you draw appearing in their screens instantly, so you can benefit from each other's efforts. If I start drawing more and more lines, you will notice that the oldest lines will start disappearing automatically. By default, your last 7 lines and the last 7 lines of your team members will be visible on the screen to prevent messy maps. When discussing the expert parameters, I will explain how the amount of lines can be adjusted to your needs, and I will show you now how the oldest lines disappear. I move the camera and I start adding lines, one by clicking on the map. And what we will notice, as soon as there are 7 lines, the oldest lines will disappear. So every time I make a new line, the oldest line disappears. Of course, the lines that we now see on the screen do not make any sense from a practical fox hunting perspective. Normally, we would expect lines to point in the same direction from one location, and we could normally only plot one line per location. But for explaining the tool in this video, we just draw many lines in many directions from one position because that is easier to show. Anyway, a line that was drawn can easily be deleted again by double-clicking close to the line that you want to delete. I will show you how that works. And a nice detail is that team members will see a deleted line disappearing in their screens as well, after you deleted the line. So when I click close to a line, double click. Do you want to delete the black line? I say yes. If I double click, do you want to delete the black line? I say no. It remains as it was. When you triple click on a line, you can change the priority of that line. You can change the priority of both your lines and the lines of your team members. The priorities that you set will not be saved in the database, and as a result, your priorities will not be visible for your team members, but only for yourself. Another feature of priority lines is that they will not be deleted automatically when new lines are created. So priority lines persist until you delete them manually. I will show you how that works. So I triple click, and it asks, do you want to toggle the line priority? If I say yes, it becomes yellow. If I click again, 3 times, do you want to toggle the line priority of the black line? I say yes, and it is blue again. If I mark a line, yellow, and I start adding new lines, you will see that the oldest lines will disappear again, but the yellow line remains. And when I double click close to the yellow line, I can delete it manually. For now, this is enough about lines. Let's proceed to the second button on the top of the screen, which is Plot Location Marker. By pressing this button, you can put a location marker at a specific spot on the map to indicate a specific spot of importance. And the coordinates of the marker are copied to the clipboard so that you can paste them in any app if you want. If you collaborate, your team members will see the location marker appearing in their screens as well. You can plot only one location marker, so if you press the button again, the location marker will be moved to another position. I will show you how that works. So I zoom out a little bit. So, and I press the button, plot location marker, and it says, click on the map to set the position of the location marker. So I press. And I get a message that the coordinates are copied to the clipboard. And where you see the marker, in the left top of the screen, that's the point where I click the map. If I press the button again, plot location marker, it says again, click on the map to set the position of the location marker. I press OK. And I take another spot. And where I just clicked is where you see the marker now. The next button is called Navigate to Position. By pressing this button, you can select a specific spot on the map. Most likely, you will select a spot where lines are crossing, and that's then a place where the fox could hide itself, where you want to navigate to. When the button is pressed, a target icon appears at the selected location, and the GPS coordinates of that location are copied to the clipboard. The icon will also become visible for your team members, so they are informed that you are driving to that specific location. I will show you how that works in practice. So I press the button, navigate to position. It says click on the map to set the position to navigate to. I click on a certain spot on the map. Where you see the target icon appearing is where I just clicked on the map, and a confirmation message is given that the coordinates are copied to the clipboard. And I press OK. Since the GPS coordinates are now on the clipboard, you can easily paste them into your favorite SatNav app, like Cyjig, Waze or Google Maps. Personally, I like Cyjig, since this app supports displaying a widget on top of the fox hunting tool, so that the fox hunting tool can be used while navigating to a desired location. I will show you how this works in practice, and we will start driving a little, but only after we turn on the tracking positions again. So I turn on tracking positions, I switch to the Cyjig app, I click on the loop icon, and it already says the coordinates that were copied, it already recognizes them. So I only have to click the coordinates that we see on the screen. I click it again. I click on Get Directions. I press OK. And I say Start. And now the Cyjig app is guiding us through the destination as seen by the target icon on the map. I swipe up, and then Cyjig will become a widget, and I switch back to the fox hunting tool. I rearrange the icons a little bit, and we can start driving so that we can see how that goes in practice. As you can see, the auto zoom and auto center function are still turned off. We see the true course to north mode is enabled, so the map rotates when we rotate. And we will drive to another parking spot close by. I will turn auto zoom and auto center. You have to wait a little bit for the traffic. We are not the only ones on this road. As you can see, it's a relatively small road, so we have to give space to each other. We just drive a small distance. And in the meanwhile, I can switch to magnetic course to north mode, and then again the red arrow will rotate if we rotate instead of the map. And as you see, the navigation Cyjig is a little bit confused, and that's because we don't follow the instructions that it's giving to us. So it wants us to drive another direction that we are driving. So we arrive at another parking spot. And here we have to watch people who are cycling. And I take a parking spot for now. Okay, I will close now the Cyjig app. I will close it here as well. Let me see where it is. It's okay. Okay. As I already explained, we did not follow the instructions of the Cyjig app. Instead, we arrived at another parking spot. Suppose we have been driving for a while and we found out that the fox is located here. Then we can click the next button, Fox Found Here. When this button is pressed, a flag icon is displayed at the current location, and the coordinates are copied to the clipboard so that you can paste them in any app. If you collaborate, the team members see this flag as well, so they are informed about the location of the fox. We will also be asked whether we want to stop tracking positions, and if we do so, the track length is displayed. I will show you how that works in practice. So I press the Fox Found Here button, and it asks, did you find the fox at the current location? If I say yes, it says it copies the current coordinates to the clipboard. I press OK, and it asks, do you want to stop tracking position? And I say yes. And it says that we were driving about 0.8 kilometers until now. And I press OK. If I turn off auto zoom, I can zoom in a little bit, and we can see there's a flag icon and there's our red arrow icon. Both of them are there now. The last button at the top of the screen is the About This Tool button. This button shows the actual tool version, it shows a disclaimer message, and it thanks some people. After clicking OK, a second pop-up that offers the possibility to open a quick reference, as well as this demo video. I will show you around in the quick reference guide later on, and I will show you about the button now. So if I click it, the screen appears with the version of the tool. If I press OK, a second pop-up comes up. It gives some basic information, including a link to a quick reference guide and to this demo video. I press OK. So now we discussed all the buttons on both the top and the bottom of the screen. Those buttons are the most important ones that you need during fox hunting activities. But as we already saw, the options menu contains some more buttons. I will elaborate on a few of them, and some of them I will skip because I can easier show their functions from a desktop computer. So I open the options menu, and the first button we see is the Add Line by Heading button. This button offers the possibility to enter a course of 0 to 360 degrees and draw a line from the current position relative to the North Pole of the planet. So it means that if I draw a line with a heading of 0 degrees, it will always point to the North Pole. I will show you how a line of 0 degrees and a line of 45 degrees look in practice. So I press Add Line by Heading. The tool asks for the amount of degrees that I want. I press OK for 0, and we see the line. This line is now not pointing to the exact north because the map rotation is not 0 degrees. So if I press the icon on the bottom, the white arrow, a few times, then you will see that gradually the map rotates back to the north and the blue line exactly points to the north, to the top of the screen. I press the button again and I change the value of 0 degrees. I change it for 45 degrees. And I press OK. And then we see another blue line, 45 degrees, relative to the earlier line, to the previous line we made. The second button is Add Line by Bearing button. This button offers the possibility to enter a course of 0 to 360 degrees and draw a line from the current position relative to our current direction, or so-called orientation. So it means that if our direction points to 270 degrees and we draw a line of 0 degrees by bearing, the line will point straight ahead from the perspective of our current direction, which is 270 degrees. And if we draw a line of 45 degrees by bearing, the line will point 45 degrees from the perspective of our current direction, which is 270 plus 45 is 315 degrees. I will show you how that works in practice. So I press the second button, Add Line by Bearing. I use 0 degrees and I press OK. And as we can see, I will put off the auto center function, move a little bit. We can see the new blue line pointing to the left of the screen, exactly in the direction of the red arrow. If I press the button again, and I change the 0 for 45 degrees, and I press OK, then we see another line, which is also pointing to the left upper part of the screen. And that's a line of 45 degrees relative to our current orientation. While driving, you will most likely prefer using the line ahead button or prefer clicking on the map to draw lines, instead of manually entering a course by heading or a course by bearing. But if you use Doppler radio direction finding equipment, you might want to enter the precise course by heading or by bearing as indicated by the radio direction finding equipment. Or if you are on a fixed location and use a directional antenna on a rotor in your shack, you might also prefer entering a course manually. That brings us to the next button, which says using actual position. This button tells us that the red arrow is located at our actual position as provided by the GPS sensor. This means that if we move, the red arrow will move with us. By pressing this button, we can locate the red arrow at a fixed position. And if we would move, the red arrow would remain at that same fixed position. While driving in the car, this fixed position feature will most likely not be used. But when you are in your shack and you are using your desktop computer for drawing a line in the direction of where the signal is coming from, as found out with your directional base antenna on a rotor, you most likely prefer manually locating the red arrow at your shack's position and enter the course of the line by heading manually. I will show you how this works in practice. So first of all, I start zooming out. And I click the button that says using actual position. And then it says click on the map to set your fixed position. So I press OK. And I relocate myself to the location where we see the red arrow behind the pop-up, and it says again that the coordinates are copied to the clipboard. And there in the top right part of the screen we see our red arrow. What I can do now, I can for example say add line ahead, and then we see a blue line in our current direction but at a fixed position. And I can click on the map to draw another line as we already showed. So I switch back to actual position by pressing that button again, and we see the red arrow moving. The next button I want to explain is the Set Compass to North button. By pressing this button, the current device's direction or orientation is set to be the direction of the magnetic north of the planet. This button is most likely not used so often, since the GPS-assisted orientation, or the absolute orientation sensor, if your device is equipped with that, is finding out the magnetic north of the planet automatically. But if you want to set the compass north manually, that can be done with this button. What you would do you would do that with a compass or just with any known reference point. Put the device in the direction of the north and push the Set Compass to North button. I will switch to the magnetic course to north mode, and I will press the button while we are not facing the magnetic north. You will see that the red arrow on the screen will point to the top of the map then, indicating that our current direction, as seen through the camera view, is pointing to the magnetic north, which is of course incorrect, since we are now facing at about 270 degrees. So this is true course to north mode, this is magnetic course to north mode, and I press Set Compass to North button. And it said current device direction is set as north. And we see the red arrow is now incorrectly facing to the top of the screen. The next button is the Reset Compass Correction button. This button resets the compass correction as calculated by the GPS-assisted orientation. Normally, it would not be needed to reset this compass correction manually, since the GPS-assisted orientation recalculates the correction factor continuously. But in some specific circumstances, it can be necessary to reset the compass correction to 0, and that is why this button is available. I will press the button, and the direction the red arrow is pointing to afterwards is the uncorrected direction the relative orientation sensor is providing us. So I press the button, Reset Compass Correction, and it says compass correction is set to 0. And what we see now is that the red arrow is facing downwards, and apparently that is the direction that the uncorrected sensor is pointing to at this moment. I will explain the export parameter button and the blue buttons when I'm using a desktop computer, because I can easier visualize exporting files, generating screenshots, and showing a time-lapse of a finished fox hunting event on a big screen. That brings us to the GPS Assisted Orientation button. By default, this function is turned on, and under normal circumstances it's good to have it turned on, since it refines the orientation sensor data. But if you want to turn it off, you can do so by pressing this button. And if you turn it off, you are asked whether you want to reset compass correction to 0 degrees. And that compass correction to 0 degrees reset is basically the same as pressing on the button Reset Compass Correction that we just discussed. I will show you how that works in practice. So I press the button, it becomes red, and now the GPS Assisted Orientation is turned off. We are not asked whether we want to reset the compass correction because it was just reset. If I press the button again, it's turned on again. I will show you more about the next button, which is about displaying and hiding team objects, when I'm simulating collaborating in a fox hunting team. So I will skip that button for now, since we don't have any information from team members yet that we can display. The button using actual position we already discussed, so that brings us to the scale line button. This button displays or hides the scale line, which gives an indication for the distances that are seen in the current zoom level of the map. The scale is dynamic, so it works at any zoom level. So if I enable the line by clicking the button, we see it at the bottom of the screen. If I start zooming out, you'll see it is adjusted, and if I'm zooming in, it keeps on following the zoom level we are in. Like the auto center setting, the auto zoom setting, and the course to north setting, the scale line setting is saved, so the last setting used is applied again when the tool is restarted at a later moment. As already explained, the track positions and orientation sensor setting are not remembered. Those are always turned off by default, and the orientation sensor should always be manually enabled after the tool is started. The Debug Info and Debug Console buttons remain. I will discuss their purpose later on. First, I will show you how collaboration features work. As nicknamed Michael, using code summer, we have generated a track. We drew some lines and plotted some markers, and we indicated we found a fox. Let's restart the tool and enter nickname Richard while using the same code summer. So I refresh the page. Basically that's the same as restarting the tool. I enter name Richard. I press OK. And I use the same secret code summer that we were just using with Michael. And I press OK. I move the camera again. And as you can see, the lines that were made by Michael are visible for Richard. The lines are not blue but gray, indicating that the lines are not made by Richard but by one of the team members. And if we zoom out, we can also see who made the lines. I zoom out far enough. Oh. We see that the lines are made by Michael and they have a number as well. And we also see the markers and the flag icon that Michael made, if I zoom in again. And if I draw some lines, if I plot a marker somewhere on the map, if I navigate to a specific location, or if I indicate that I found a fox, that will be visible as well for all the team members. So let me draw some lines, put some markers in the area, so that we can view the results afterwards when we are back in the shack. So I put a line here. I put a line here by clicking on the map. I say plot location marker. I press OK. And I put the location marker. I can even say navigate to position. I press OK. And I put the target icon where you see it appearing. That's where I just clicked. And I press OK. I will now show you the last two buttons of the options menu, which relate to debug information. I will start with showing the Debug Console button, and afterwards I will show what is behind the Debug Info button while we drive around. If I click the Debug Console button, you will see that from the bottom of the screen information starts appearing. And it is about the downloading that's happening. And as we see, there's no new data to download, since there are no other team members in the team that are generating data. If I add another line, by clicking on the screen, you see that we get the message that the data is uploaded successfully. So our line is stored in the database. And again, there is no new data to download, since there are no other team members that are generating data. But if there would be other team members, you will see here in the Debug Console that new data is downloaded. The Debug Console is visible, but you can click through it. So behind the console we see some buttons, and although the console is overlapping them, we can still click on the button. And I will do so to hide the Debug Console again. Now I will proceed with explaining about the Debug Info button. By default, the Debug Info button, the Debug Info, is not displayed. And most likely you will not prefer having the Debug Info displayed during fox hunting, because it consumes a lot of space on the small screen of a smartphone. But if you use a tablet, you can have the debug information easier displayed without being disturbed too much. The debug information is not of really practical relevance during fox hunting. It gives insight in available sensor types, raw sensor information, status of uploading and downloading to and from the database, and of course it gives insight in the actual status of the GPS assisted orientation feature. So let's turn on the Debug Info, let's hide the options menu, and let's start driving so that I can explain the Debug Info, which is updated in real time while we drive. So, what we see on the top of the screen are 5 blocks, 5 gray blocks, that are about the type of orientation sensor. The first item says that we have an orientation sensor because the number is 1, it means it is an active sensor. The second means that we need to use a certain function for addressing the orientation sensor. I will not go into detail about it, but that's basically what it is. The third one and the fourth one are about which permissions are needed to address the orientation sensor. And as you can see, there is no permission needed because it says not applicable. So it means we can just use this sensor without explicit user permission. And the last one says DOE alpha, which means that we are using a relative sensor. And as we earlier explained, there are also absolute sensors, but we are using a relative sensor. Below that you see a big green block, and the big green block can also become red and blue, as you saw. I will explain what's in the block. First of all, the block says that absolute is undefined, and that means that the orientation sensor is relative. Below it says orientation is alpha plus beta plus gamma, and it means that the orientation sensor is 3-dimensional, so it operates in the 3 planes. Below that we see a correction factor, and that is about 133 degrees by now, and that is the correction factor as applied by the GPS assisted orientation. I will go into that later in detail about it. Below that we have alpha, beta and gamma, and that means that are basically the raw sensor data in the 3 planes of the sensor. And below that we see heading, and heading means that that is the course we are driving as derived by the GPS assisted orientation feature. And below that we see sensor, and basically that is displaying the raw sensor data, basically the uncorrected sensor data as we see it. You see the block can be green, or the block is green by now. And you also saw that the block can be red or blue. when the orientation sensor indicates that we are driving in a straight line, then the block is green. But if I pull a little bit on my steering wheel, like I just did, you see the block becomes red. And red means that we are not driving in a straight line. And after we were not driving in a straight line, it takes some time before the block becomes green again, and in the meanwhile it's blue. So blue is a kind of timeout period. And the parameters can be adjusted in the expert parameter section, like I already explained. I will discuss that later on. So yeah, the block is green again, and how precise it is, how much time it takes for becoming green, all those stuff can be easily adjusted in the expert parameters. Below that big block, that's green now, we have two small green blocks, and the first of that is GPS correction speed. And that means that, let's say, the block is green when we drive fast enough for the GPS assisted orientation feature to work accurately. So if we drive very slow, or if we stand still, then that block is becoming red. I will soon take a corner to the right, and when we do, I will be able to drive slowly so I can explain you about the color of the block. So here we go right, and you will see that the big block will become red immediately because we are not driving in a straight line. And now we see, as I further slow down, the GPS correction speed will become red. If I slow down like this, you see it's becoming red. And because we are now almost standing still, the speed is not fast enough for the GPS assisted orientation to work properly, so it's red. The next block is the GPS correction heading. We already saw that becoming red. And it's now green, and that means that the last two, in this situation, the last two GPS headings, of, let's say the last two headings as derived by the GPS movement, are more or less equal. And if they are more or less equal, that is a sign that the GPS correction, the GPS assisted orientation feature, that it can work properly. We just made a corner, and then you saw it becoming red, because then apparently we are not driving in a straight line. So basically we have three blocks, a big one and two small ones, and those all indicate if the GPS assisted orientation feature can work accurately or not. And if they are all green, like they are now, the next block will also be green. So if I pull my steering wheel a little bit, like I just did, you see the big block becomes blue and red, and you also see that the next block is blue for now. And that means, like you can see, that the GPS correction status is paused. So that means the GPS assisted orientation feature is not working at that moment, because no reliable correction can be derived, according to the earlier three blocks. If it's green, it says GPS correction status active, and it means that the GPS assisted orientation feature is working accurately. The second line in that block says GPS correction count. And you can see that in the meanwhile 603, 604 corrections were made by the GPS assisted orientation feature. It also says the compass sensor, and the compass sensor is basically the same as what we saw in the earlier block. It's the raw sensor data, the raw orientation sensor data. And as we know, because the sensor is relative, it needs to be corrected by the GPS assisted orientation feature. Below that we see the GPS heading, which is basically the corrected heading, as corrected by the GPS assisted orientation feature. And what we also see is the new GPS correction and the old GPS correction. Basically, that are the two last correction factors that were applied by the GPS assisted orientation feature. So as we drive now, we are driving relatively straight, so everything is green. But again, if I pull my steering wheel, immediately the orientation sensor recognizes that it becomes red, at least the blocks becomes red, and that's why the GPS correction status will be paused. All the parameters of those sensor details, they can all be changed in the expert parameters, and again I will explain that later on. Below that we have a green block that gives our current GPS positions in two formats, as well as the GPS accuracy, which is at this moment about 3 meters, 3.4 meters, and that's quite okay. Below that we see a gray block, and the gray block displays the operating system that's being used, and yeah, we use a Google Pixel, so that's Android. And below that we see a green block, and it's about uploading. And you see a number, it's now 269, sorry. And if I would, for example, draw a line, which I'm doing now, add a line yes, you will see that the number increases to 498. And that's quite interesting because it was not updated in the meanwhile. Anyway, I put on tracking positions for now. And because I put it on, you will see that the number is increasing every second, every few seconds, because our location data is being uploaded now. If I turn it off, track positions off, okay, then you will see that the number will not further increase. And the block is green. It means that the last upload was successful. It also says 456 milliseconds. It means that it took 456 milliseconds for the upload request to be performed and to be confirmed by the database server. The block below that, it says downloading, and you will see that that number is also increasing every 5 seconds. And that means that the last download was successful from the database server, but as already indicated, there were no new items. And that is because at this moment we are the only one in the fox hunting team operating, so there are no other people who generate data. If new data would be generated, the block would become green, and the block would explain how much data, how much items were downloaded. But again, for now it's blue, and it will remain blue. Below that we see the track length, and that's the length of our current track that is increasing, of course, while we drive further. And the track length is also the same track length that is displayed when you press the button Found Fox Here. Then it also gives a summary of the track length so far. Below that there is the zoom factor, and that number increases and decreases according to our speed. So you see the faster we drive, the lower the number becomes. And we see the map rotation. So if I rotate the map manually, for example by this, you will see that the rotation factor is changed. Or if I say true course to north mode, you will also see that the rotation is updated dynamically, depending on how we drive. And apparently we are now driving quite straight to the north. And below that we see some speeds. Basically the last means the last two speeds, or the last speed that is measured, including the distance that was measured during the last two GPS coordinates. And below that you see a block that's also coloring green and blue, so now and then. And basically the block is green when a new coordinate is logged, and it's blue when a new coordinate was there but it is not logged. And you can imagine that if I would log all the coordinates every time, every centimeter, that would create a lot of mess in the database and big tables in the database, and that's not necessary. So I only log one item, I believe, every 2 seconds. And if there are more items, then they are there, but they are not logged, and the block becomes blue by then. And below that we have the core, and that is basically the same. It's also a speed and a distance, and that is about the last speed and the last distance that was used for the GPS assisted orientation to work. Sounds a little bit vaguely. I will not go into detail because it would not be interesting, I think, for most of the viewers. But at least I decided to keep the debug info in the tool and not delete it, because some people might think it's interesting. But again, this is not of relevance during fox hunting activities. So normally when you do fox hunting, you hide the debug info and you would see the screen as this. So this was it for now. I thank you very much for watching, and yeah, we will see each other again in the shack. Thank you so far.
So, welcome back. I hope things are clear so far. What I just noticed is that the track length in the Debug Information Pane was not increasing, although I explained that it would increase while we were driving. It was not increasing because the track positions function was not enabled by that moment. Our fake fox hunting activity is finished, and we are back in the shack. This is the moment to review things from a desktop computer. I will show you how our fake fox hunting activity looks that we just made. And afterwards, I will show information from some real fox hunting activities. I restart the tool and I log in again with new nickname Michael and code summer. So I use Michael and I use code summer and I press OK. We now see the lines and objects that Michael and Richard created earlier. Since I'm logged in as Michael, the lines that Michael made are blue. The track that Michael made is red. The lines that Richard, and if applicable other team members made, are grey, and his track is cyan. We also see the purple markers, which indicate the last known positions of Richard and Michael. And if those markers don't move for 1 minute, those markers change into a question marker automatically, indicating that the position might not be actual anymore. Unfortunately, I cannot easily show you now that the purple markers move in real time, because there are no other team members active in this fox hunting team at this moment. But believe me, the purple markers will move in real time as team members move. And later in this video, I will replay some past fox hunting activities as a time-lapse, and then the markers will move. At this moment, we could add or delete lines, as we did in the car, and as I showed from the car. But that doesn't make sense for now. And I already explained earlier how that works, with both the actual position and a fixed position. I will explain the remaining buttons of the options menu, because we did not yet discuss all of them. First, I will show that the information from team members can be easily hidden or displayed by pressing the Team Objects Visible button. So I open the options menu and I press the button Team Objects Visible, and when I click that one, the information from the team members is hidden and we now only see the information that Michael generated. And if I click the button again, the other information from the team members is displayed as well. And if I log in again with Richard instead of Michael, using the same code summer again, the lines of Richard will be blue and the track of Richard will be red. And if I go then to the Team Objects Visible button and I click it, then we only see the information that Richard made. And if I click the button again, we also see the information that Michael made. I will now switch to some real fox hunting activities, because showing the next buttons make more sense if we use real fox hunting data. So I will restart the tool and I will log in with different credentials. So I log in again with nickname Michael, but this time I use code demo04 and I press OK. And as we can see, in this fox hunting activity, 2 people were involved, namely Michael and Nelis. We see the blue and gray lines again, we see the red and cyan trail, we see several markers, and we see the flag, which indicates that the fox was found. As we just showed, we can enable or disable the team member information, but we can do more. First of all, we can export the track to a GPX file, which we can import and replay in any of the available GPX file readers. I will show you how that works. So I click the button Export Own Track to GPX, and own means that it's only the track of the person that is logged on, which is Michael at this moment. So I press the button. The GPX file is being generated by the tool, and I can easily open it with any of the GPX file readers that are available. And I use this one for now. It's an online GPX file reader. I can browse the file and I select the file. It starts loading the file automatically. And on this platform, I can see the red trail again, and I can also browse through it by time. So that's just a feature of this platform. But you can use basically any software, any online or offline tool that is able to view GPX files. Secondly, we can export the raw data, related to an individual team or code, to an SQL file, which could be imported in the SQL database if so desired. This might not be so useful in practice, but at least it is a backup of all the raw team data that is stored in the database. I will show you how that file looks and how it works. So I click on the button, Export Team Data to SQL, and this time it's not only the data of Michael, no, this time it is the data of the whole team, so both Nelis and Michael in this situation. I press the button, the SQL file is being generated, and I can easily open it in a text viewer. And if I open it, it looks like this. This is basically the SQL insert statements that could be performed and that could be executed. And all the data of all the team members is there. And it again, it could be imported in the database if so desired. Thirdly, we can generate a screenshot of the current screen by pressing the Save Screenshot button. The screenshot shows exactly what is on the map in its current form, as you see it on the screen. But the buttons that you see on the screen now are not displayed in the screenshot, however. I will show you how that works. So I press the button, Save Screenshot. A screenshot is generated. And if I click on it, I can open it. And then you can see the screenshot as it is here. And that's exactly what we just saw on the screen. And if I zoom out, of course, it makes sense, and I press the button again, a new screenshot is generated. And if I open that one, we see exactly the same, but it's only the map. So no browser bars, no address bar, no buttons, it's just the map. Last but not least, it is possible to generate a replay link. A replay link can be shared with anyone. And when clicked on the link, it generates a time-lapse of the fox hunting activity. And I will show you how that works. So we are now in this fox hunting activity. I click the link, Generate Replay Link. A confirmation is given that the replay link is copied to the clipboard. And there's an additional information that says that you can change the parameter of the link from 2 to 1, so to only display the own information, in this situation Michael, and hide the information from other team members, in this situation Nelis. So I press OK. I open a new browser tab, I paste the link, and I press enter. And when I press enter, it asks enter the length for the replay. I choose for now 10 seconds, that is quite fast, and I press OK. And then the fox hunting event is replayed in a quite high speed, as you can see. And you can see how Michael and Nelis have been searching for the fox. And in the end, both of them found the fox. So if I zoom in, I can really see that the flag is here and Nelis ended here and Michael ended here. This was quite fast, of course, but you can decrease the time, you can increase it between 10 seconds and 2 minutes. And it is also possible, like I explained, to change this parameter. So if I change this parameter to 1 and I press enter again, and I'm asked again how much time the time lapse should take, and I say again 10 seconds. When I press OK now, I will only see the information of Michael. It really goes fast. And all the other information from Nelis and other team members, if they are there, that's hidden. So this is more, it gives a better overview of what Michael did. And I will show you some other time-lapse, just for the fun of some past fox hunting activities. So I will close this tab, I will refresh again, and I will just show some other time-lapses. So I go to Michael, I say demo 01, and I press OK. We see another track and some lines. If I go to the options menu, I say generate replay link. I press OK. I paste the link in another browser. This time I will increase the time a little bit to 20 seconds and I press OK. And then you will see this track. And again, this was a real fox hunting activity that me myself joined. So I was really driving this car as you see it on the screen. And the fox was found. So I close this one. I will show you another one. And I will also add links to this demo data, to the video text, to the text of this video. So you can replay it yourself as well if you wish. I take another one. It's also an interesting one. I say generate replay link and I press OK. I paste the link and I press enter. And let's say 20 seconds again, quite fast. And I press OK. And here you see that I was making a strange round. Was not necessary. This was quite a struggle at a certain moment to find the fox. Yeah. And I found the fox. So that's just, again in a time lapse, and in the top of the screen you can see that 27.24 kilometers. That was the distance, and I was taking 36 minutes to find the fox. So I close the tab again. As long as the information is stored in the database, anyone who has the replay link can replay the fox hunting activity without having the option to change the track, the lines or objects that were made. From that perspective, a replay link gives read-only access to the fox hunting tool. Information older than 7 days is deleted from the database automatically, so if you want to preserve the information, be sure to make an SQL export of the data before the data is deleted from the database. Because of security reasons, you cannot import the deleted data by yourself. But if you send me your SQL file, I'm willing to import the data for you if you would like to. Now I will show you how team members get informed about new information that is generated by other team members. For that I will use two browsers, and I will log in with Michael and Richard simultaneously, while using again the team code summer. Here I log in with Michael again, and I use code summer this time, and I press OK. This is the data that we generated earlier in our fake fox hunting activity. Move to the right, and I take another browser on the left part of the screen. There I log in with Richard, and I use code summer again, and I press OK. And here we see basically the same data on this side of the screen from Richard's perspective, and on this side from the screen from Michael's perspective. When I add a new line as Richard, Michael will get informed with a blue flashing screen. So I will add a line, this time as Richard. I click on the screen. Do you want to add a black line? I say yes. And watch out what happens. The screen will become blue for a sec, and a new line, in this kind of gray line, is added because Richard made a line. And when I add a location marker as Michael, Richard will get informed by a red flashing screen. So if I choose this button, plot location marker, and I press OK, and I put the marker here, watch out what happens on the left part of the screen. The screen will become red for some seconds, and the marker is there. And as soon Richard indicates he found the fox, Michael will get informed by a yellow flashing screen. So if I press the button, found fox here, did you find the fox at the current location? I say yes. And watch out what happens here. The screen becomes yellow, and the flag icon will be displayed at the current location of Richard. I'm using a desktop computer, so the current location is out of the screen at this moment, but believe me, somewhere on the map a flag is added, named with Richard. Those colors also work, of course, on smartphone device, on mobile devices, but for the convenience of the video, I show it on a desktop computer now. And now I will show you the expert parameters. So I close this one again, and I maximize this one, and I open the options menu. The values of the expert parameters are saved in a so-called local browser storage. which is more or less comparable with a cookie. And this means that if you change settings, the settings will be applied automatically the next time you access the tool from that device. I will guide you through the settings one by one. So I click on the button, Export Parameters, and first it asks if I want to reset the custom settings to the default settings. If I click yes, then the settings immediately are reset to the default settings, and you even see the map instantly moving to the default location. Then it asks, do I want to change the current settings? For now I say no. Do you want to restart the tool to apply the settings? I say no. So basically I now did a reset of the settings. If I click the button again, it asks again, do you want to reset the custom settings to default settings? I say no this time. Do you want to change the current settings? I say yes. And after I press yes, quite some options appear one by one, and I will guide you through them. So I click yes. First it says, enter the amount of your most recent own lines that you should be displayed. I showed you earlier that when you start and keep on adding new lines, the oldest lines will be deleted. And this number basically refers to the number of your own lines that will be displayed at the maximum. It was 7 and I leave it with 7 and I press OK. The next one is the question, how much of the most recent theme lines should be displayed. And again, I also explained that is about the gray lines, like we see here. How many gray lines would you like to see in the screen at the maximum? And it is 7, and I leave it with 7. Then we have the line length. The lines, I did not explicitly show that, but the lines are quite long, and by default it's 100 kilometers. That should be enough for any regular fox hunting activity. But if you would have very long distance fox hunting activities with a lot of transmit power, most likely, you can increase the value, or you can decrease the value as you wish. But I leave it again for 100 kilometers for now, but you can adjust it. Then there's the latitude part of the default coordinate to be displayed. At this moment it is 52 dot and then some more numbers. Basically it is about this coordinate, the red arrow that we see here. I can change it and I press OK to not change it. And the same is with the longitude part of the default coordinate. What the default coordinate does is that if your device, like this computer, is not having a GPS, it falls back to that default coordinate. But if your device is having a GPS, it always takes the actual GPS coordinate as soon as the GPS is enabled. So I leave this also and I press OK. Then we have the default zoom factor. And that is a number, and as I showed you in the Debug Information Pane, you can also see that number. You can see it increasing and decreasing. And it means that if we start a tool, like we just did, the default zoom factor is 15. And the more you lower this number, the more it is being zoomed out. That's what's explained here. And you can adjust the value according to your own needs. But by default, it's 15. And I press OK. Then we have the minimum zoom factor. The minimum zoom factor means to which extent the map is zoomed out at the highest speed, which we can adjust in one of the later options, and that's 12 by now. So it means that if you are driving, for example, 100 kilometers an hour, if that's the maximum speed, then the map is zoomed to factor 12. If I press OK, we get the next one, and that is the maximum zoom factor. And that means if you are standing still, basically, or driving very slowly, to which extent the map should be zoomed. And by default, it's 20, but you can adjust it. I press OK. Then we have the minimum speed to be used for starting zooming out. And that means that if you drive 14.4 kilometers an hour or faster, from that speed up, the map is being zoomed out automatically. And you can adjust the speed. And there's also a maximum speed, and that is by default put at 100.8 kilometers an hour. And that means that if you drive faster as this speed, there's no more zooming out. So at this speed, the zoom factor at this moment will be 12 by my head. Yeah. And I press OK. The next one is the maximum speed between 2 or 3 clicks to interpret it as a double or triple click. I explained you can click once on the line, you can click 2 times, you can click 3 times. And by default, the double or triple click should happen within 250 milliseconds. If it's too fast or too slow for you, you can change the value here. And I leave it by the default value. Then we have a value that causes the marker, the purple marker of a team member to automatically change to a question marker. And what it means is that if a marker from a team member is not relocated within 60 seconds, that's the default value, if it's not moved within 60 seconds, the purple marker is converted automatically in a question marker, indicating that the actual location is questionable. It's not clear if the actual location, as you see it on the map, is the real actual location, because a team member might have shut down the tool or whatever. So it's it indicates that it is basically an old marker. I leave it for now, but you could also lower or decrease or increase the value. I click OK. Then we have the amount of upload retries before an upload will fail. I showed you also that the tool is continuously downloading and uploading from and to the database. And if it fails uploading, for example, if you made a line and at that moment there's no internet connectivity, you can here adjust how many retry attempts the tool will do before the upload fails. By default it's 5, but you could increase it to 10 attempts. I leave it for now and I press OK. Then we have the minimum speed at which the GPS-assisted orientation corrections start to happen. I explained to you earlier in the debug information that there is a minimum speed. If you drive slower as that speed, the GPS-assisted orientation will not work. By default, it is 10.8 kilometers an hour. And it prevents that if you are standing still, there will also be some slight GPS movements, even if you stand still. And this speed is one of the elements that takes care that no unwanted GPS corrections happen. But if you would use this tool by walking or cycling, this speed could be way too high, because you have to run basically. If you have this speed, you have to walk very fast. So if you use the tool for walking, you could consider lowering this value. I press OK. Then we have the minimum degrees the GPS-assisted orientation correction should happen. And that is about the GPS headings that are derived from the GPS movements. And I also explained that earlier in the Debug Info pane. By default, it's 10 degrees. It means that if the last two GPS headings are differing more than 10 degrees, then GPS-assisted orientation will stop functioning for that moment until the value is below 10 degrees. So if you are walking again, you might shake with your phone, you might move it around, I don't know what, but then this value could be and should be most likely increased, because otherwise the GPS-assisted orientation will never work. If your device had an absolute sensor, then you don't need the GPS-assisted orientation feature. You can even turn it off as you wish, but this is just the value that you can adjust. I press OK. Then we have the amount of successive minimum speeds that should occur before the GPS-assisted orientation corrections start to happen. And that means that, as you saw also in the Debug Information pane, the last speeds are measured every time. They are captured by the tool. And this value of 2 means that 2 speed measurements should be above the minimum value before the GPS-assisted orientation start to happen. If you would increase this to 5, for example, I will not do it, but you could increase it to 5, then it basically takes longer for the GPS-assisted orientation function to start again after it was paused. That's basically what's happening. I leave it for value 2 and I click OK. Then we can enter the maximum amount of orientation sensor difference that is allowed for the GPS-assisted orientation corrections to start to happen. And this is very strict, I would say. It is 0.5 degrees. So it means that if the orientation sensor measures a difference of more than 0.5 degrees, then the GPS-assisted orientation function stops to work. And that's why you, in the earlier demo of the debug information, you saw that the big green block easily becoming red when I make a slight pull on my steering wheel. And again, if you are cycling or if you are walking, you most likely want to increase this value because you will more or less always be above 0.5 degrees. But when the device, in my situation a Google Pixel 6a, is fixed to the front window of the car, yeah, then you can use this very strict setting. And I think it's nice because then you prevent any unwanted GPS assisted corrections. But again, if you walk or if you cycle, this value should be increased. I press OK. Then we have the amount of time the orientation sensor should be stable before the GPS assisted orientation corrections start to happen. Basically, that is again about that big green block that was visible in the debug information. It was green if we drive straight. If we move, it becomes red. And after that, it becomes blue for a certain period. And that is this period. By default, it is 2 seconds, 2000 milliseconds. I click OK. Then we have the center and rotate interval. And it is by default 100 milliseconds. Basically, this is a function in the code of the tool. And every 100 milliseconds, it centers and rotates the map. And it has to do with those functions, the true course to north button and the auto center button. If it's turned on, it will auto center the map every 100 milliseconds. And it will, every 100 millisecond, it will center the map, it will rotate the map again according to the true course to north mode. It could, let's say I put a limit at 100 milliseconds. Theoretically, it can be lower, but then the CPU utilization becomes quite high. And I think 100 milliseconds gives a quite nice and smooth impression of the movements and of the centering. And that's why I put it at the minimum. But you can increase the value if you would like to. If you have an older device that's getting hot or whatever, you can increase the value up to 5 seconds. I press OK. Then we have the update map zoom interval, and that has to do with the auto zoom function. By default, it's every second, but you could also increase or decrease the value. And basically what this means is that every second the auto zoom function is looking to the speed, it's investigating the speed, and depending on the speed, it is changing the zoom level. It's done every second. I press OK. Then we have the interval markers interval. And that basically is a function that takes care that the purple markers are converted into a question mark, and that's happening every 5 seconds. And again, you can also change that as you wish. Then we went through all the settings, through all the expert parameters, and as you saw, there are quite some of them. By clicking the OK button for all the expert parameters, they are saved in the local storage, as I explained. And now I get the question whether I want to restart the tool to apply the changed settings. Now, I could press yes, then the new settings are applied, but since I did not change anything effectively, I can just click no and we just stay as we are. One of the last things I will show you is which data is stored in the database. For that, I open phpMyAdmin, which is a graphical user interface that offers the possibility to easily manage an SQL database. So there it is. In the database we have 3 tables: Fox Data, Fox Event and Fox Sessions. And I will guide you through them one by one. The first table is the most important one. Those are the columns of the table. First, every upload that's being done by the Fox Hunting tool goes with a timestamp. So the moment, it basically means the moment when the upload was done. Furthermore, it goes with a hashed access code. And basically that is a hash of the team or individual code that was entered while starting up the tool. And it is a hashed code, so it means not the code itself is stored, so the code is secret, so it's not stored in the database, only a hash is stored. I will not go into detail what a hash is, but basically it means that the code cannot be retrieved from the database, but the tool can check if the correct code is entered. That's basically what it is. Furthermore, every uploaded record goes with a call sign or nickname that's also entered while starting up the database, when starting up the tool. Then we have three fields. It is about a type and status and unique identifier of any record. So it means every record, for example a line or a marker, that's of a different type. And every record has a certain status and also a unique identifier, so that later on the record can easily be referred to, for example for deleting records. And then we have the location-based information that is stored in the database. You can imagine that a line has two coordinates, that's why there is let1, lon1, but also let2, lon2. But for example, a marker only has let1 and lon2 and not let2. One of the last things I will show you is which data is stored in the database. For that, I open phpMyAdmin, which is a GUI that offers the possibility to easily manage a MySQL database. There it is. We have three tables: Fox Data, Fox Events and Fox Sessions, and I will guide you through them one by one. Table Fox Data is the most important one. Every upload from the tool to the database goes with a timestamp, and the timestamp is the moment the upload was happening. Second, a hash of the access code is saved in the database. The access code is the secret team or individual code, and the fact that it is hashed means that the code itself is not stored in the database, but only a hash of the code is saved in the database. That's done for security reasons. It's a common practice nowadays. And what a hash is, I will not explain in detail now, but basically the code itself is not stored in the database. So what you enter is not literally stored in the database. Every upload also goes with a call sign or nickname as entered while starting up the tool. And every upload also goes with a type and status and a unique identifier. It means basically that a type could be a line, a type could be a marker, a type could be a coordinate, for example. And the status is also to do with the data. For example, it is a normal line or it is an important line that is saved in the status field. And then we have a unique identifier. It's just basically a unique number so that I can refer easily to existing records in the database. Then we have the coordinates. We have latitude and longitude 1 and latitude and longitude 2. You can imagine that a line consists of two coordinates, but the marker only needs one coordinate. And that's why we have them here. Then we have an IP address, the IP address of the user of the tool, the user agent that is being used by the user, the file name that caused the upload to happen to the database, and a referrer. And this information is mainly added for security reasons because I implemented some measures that prevent abuse of the tool, and that's why this information is needed for. The information from this table is every hour, let's say every hour, the tool automatically deletes all data older than 7 days. So be aware that after 7 days the data is gone. And be aware that as long as you do not put on the track positions function, then your location-based data is not saved. And when you don't add lines or markers or whatever, then you don't leave data in the database, basically. But as soon as you turn it on and as soon as you start making markers, of course it is saved in the database. That might be clear for now. The next table is a Fox Events table, and basically that contains only technical information about error codes, error classes and error messages. So basically those are also saved in the database. Users don't see this information, but it's just for me. If there are any troubles, I can easily review them later on. And the last table, that's about sessions. Every user of the tool gets a session ID assigned, and there, in this table basically contains all the sessions that are active. So that's about the database. I will conclude with bringing a quick reference guide to your attention, which contains all the information I showed in this video in a condensed form. But it also contains some important notes, which I will briefly discuss. So you can open the quick reference guide by clicking on this link in the corner, but you can also do it by clicking on the About This Tool button, click OK, and then click on Quick Reference Guide. It's a PDF document, so you can easily print it if you would like to. It starts with some screenshots on the first page. This is from a desktop computer. This is from a mobile device. And on the second page, the main features of the tool are summarized. I will not discuss them one by one because it's all discussed in this video, but you can review it as you wish. What is important are some notes. I will not go through them one by one either, but I just want to explain that if you would swap to another app, then depending on your device, the tool gets less or even no CPU capacity assigned. And that will result in possible small issues that the tool most likely will recover by itself. One of the things is that the orientation is lost. So the orientation sensor needs to recalibrate automatically by the GPS assisted orientation feature. And it can also be that if you have your track positions function enabled, that while the browser is not visible on the screen of your device, that the track is not being updated in the meanwhile. So then it appears for your team members that you are not active, and the purple marker will become a question marker after 1 minute. So it's good to have the tool visible as much as possible. And if you don't, for example, if you need to swap to a navigation app like Sijig or Waze or Google Maps, whatever, if you are using that app to set up your turn-by-turn navigation, then it's good to switch back as quick as possible to the tool so that it can proceed with the activities that the tool is supposed to do. Yeah, and the last thing I want to summarize about the notes is that's also what I already explained, is that the GPS assisted orientation, it's working properly, but it's never 100% perfect because it's always based on historic information. And it's always good to check if you make a line, especially if you use draw line ahead, that you just have a quick look on the map if the map is corresponding to the real orientation. Because if the map orientation is not corresponding, then the line that you draw will not be in the proper direction, and that's highly confusing. On the next and third and last page of the quick reference guide, you see a summary of all the icons and a short explanation of what they do. So you can also review that as you wish. I will not go through it one by one. And I end the quick reference guide with some features that might be added in the future. And one of the features I would really love to make is that I integrate the tool with Doppler radio direction finding equipment. And it would mean that if the Doppler equipment finds a new line, that the line is automatically added to the tool without having to enter it manually. That would be really nice. So I will see if I find the time to implement that. Another thing is GPS sensor and orientation sensor support for Windows and Linux-based desktop computers. As explained, on desktop computers you can use the tool, but actual GPS coordinates are not supported at this moment. And maybe it's nice to change that in the future. And again, when I have time, I will do. And last but not least is maybe in the future I port this tool as it is from a JavaScript, PHP, MySQL browser-based version to a native Android app or iOS app. That would be nice as well, I think, and that makes also some small issues with the app, like if it's not visible on the screen, that it's not getting CPU capacity assigned. That will be solved by then. So I will see if I have time, then I will proceed with that. So that's about the quick reference guide. So I would like to thank you for watching this video, and if you like the tool, I would say share the link with other people and make them happy with it. And if you would have an issue with the tool, don't hesitate to contact me. You can contact me by email easily, so don't hesitate to do that. So I would like to conclude again with thanking people who helped in developing the tool. Not that they were developing by themselves, but they helped me a lot in the form of inspiration and testing activities. And they are Dennis, first of all, Jeroen, Niels, Richard, Papa Delta 3 Romeo Fox Romeo, Chris, Papa Delta 0 Charlie Lima, Dirk, Papa Alpha 2 Delta Romeo Mike, and Leendert, Papa Delta 5 Lima Delta Bravo. And I thank them for their inspiration and testing efforts. And I would also like to thank again the VERON, Vereniging voor Experimenteel Radioonderzoek, Chapter 08, and especially the secretary, Richard, Papa Delta 3 Romeo Fox Romeo, for hosting this tool and this video. And if you see the About This Tool button, that is here again, I will show you, that contains links to their QRZ pages and their websites. And again, before I finish the video, that's the last thing, I advise touching the touchscreen of your smartphone or tablet with a stylus pen instead of with your fingers. Because I found out that by using a stylus pen, I can much more accurately touch the buttons of the tool and draw lines and place the markers than I could ever do by using my fingers. So that was it. I thank you very much for watching. Have a nice day, and 73 from Papa Charlie 7 Mike Mike. Bye bye.